Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Pat Larson, CEO of ZenLedger, and talking to us today is Dr. Barry West, who's a technology executive who's worked in government. Barry, thanks for joining.
Good to be here, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Are you fresh off the racetrack?
Yeah, I'm a big BMW fan, obviously. And yeah.
All your clothes are fast. I appreciate you wearing a 9-line t-shirt. I used to fly rescue helicopters, and that's, 9 lines are the information we would need to go find someone and pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hopefully you don't need it on the racetrack too often.
Right. We have a 9-line floor here, at the end of our street. So I thought you'd appreciate it today.
That was good stuff. Barry, do you want to give us a quick intro or your career and experience?
Yeah. So Pat, I'm a career technologist, came up through the ranks early on and have been in about all from programming to network management, engineering, became a CIO roughly 20 years ago, spent time at 6 different agencies as a CIO, and really had a chance to dig in and see some really interesting things during my career, whether it be at FEMA, at Homeland Security during Katrina, or helping the government stand up the first website, USA.gov. I was the technical and security lead on that, to helping the census with the 1990 lead as a technologist there. So I've gotten to see some really cool things over my career, and I've kind of evolved. And when I came out of the government in 2018, I wanted to actually stay in, and the consulting role has been a really good place for me to do that. Plus, I'm also a professor at Georgia State University in the security area. In fact, I just wrapped up a incident response and disaster recovery graduate level course this past weekend. So I'm pretty active across government. I'm also heavily involved in the Consumer Electronics Show and the government portion of that show every year. And I'm currently the program chairman for the security summit that we'll be putting on this July in San Diego. So staying very current and with government technologists and with industry as well.
Awesome. So we'll be talking about cybersecurity today. Barry's experience at a very high level with kind of like organizational and industry grade cybersecurity, and being entrusted with millions of individual records will be good stuff for us to talk about today. So Barry, could you just talk kind of generally about trends in cybersecurity you're seeing kind of like today, and maybe like what you kind of see developing in the near future here?
Yeah. So really what we're seeing here, especially over the last 12 to 18 months, Pat, is a big uptick in the ransomware area. Before it was very spotty. Ransomware was kind of like one of these things where, we've heard about it, but not many people are getting hit. And then it started to pick up within state and local governments, cities. We've had some cities that actually have been offline now for several weeks. Baltimore comes to mind. Atlanta, Georgia was hit with ransomware. It keeps evolving. And it's one of those things where it's not a matter of if you're going to be put into a ransomware situation, it's when. We just had the agency within Department of Justice was just hit this past week, a Marshal Service. So we're now starting to see some of our federal agencies become victims of ransomware. So that's becoming very concerning for our agencies, because up to this point, it's all been kind of like, well, we're very secure. We really don't have to worry about that. But now it's a matter of, okay, if you're hit with ransomware, number one, are you going to pay? And number two, do you have the technology in place for your backups and to be up quickly if you are to go down? And what is your contingency and long-term plans if you're put into this situation? Are you going to pay, and do you have the backups and the plans in place? Because a lot of what we're finding is a lot of agencies, they don't go through the planning that's necessary, whether that be from executive sponsorship or funding to staffing. many are not in a situation to recover quickly.
And then the ransom payment request is usually for cryptocurrency at this point, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So that's what they want. They want it in crypto, and a lot of these agencies don't have a clue, as you know, about crypto and how to deal with crypto. So they're having to bring large security companies into play, the Symantec's and some of the others, to really help them navigate. And then they're ending up paying a lot of money, not only for the ransomware payment, but also the support that they're going to need going forward.
From a corporate or individual standpoint, what do you think are some of the kind of the 80/20s of cybersecurity that can give you a lot of protection?
Yeah. So good question. I mean, we've seen this evolution from, what the trends, how they've evolved from denial of service attacks to phishing, spear phishing, and now ransomware. I think that's kind of been the evolution. And from an 80/20 rule, what we're seeing with it, not, it doesn't really matter which one of those we're talking about. It's the basic housekeeping, Pat, that's not been going on within the organizations, whether government or industry. And by basic housekeeping, I mean basic password management, updates to software, keeping current with some of the messaging that goes on from CISA within the Department of Homeland Security, FBI. They have their own organization called InfraGard, which is a nonprofit that works with industry and bringing out and keeping industry current on notifications. But what we're finding is a lot of these organizations don't take it seriously. Their leadership at the top is not investing the money in. So I'd say what really has to happen is to get the CISO to have a budget that he needs, get the CIO and the COO, have a seat at the table, have these folks briefing constantly on trends in cybersecurity, and then staffing, getting the budgets that's needed for training, and putting the controls, because that's what it comes down to a lot. Is we're seeing access controls and configuration management being two key areas that are not being looked at enough.
Mm-hmm. I think for cryptocurrency investors, one thing we don't think about too often is the security of the custodian. We have a deep culture of not your keys, not your crypto, but still people keep a lot of their assets on centralized exchanges or with token projects. But I don't think people do enough research into the security chops of the custodians they're trusting.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree. And then the encryption is another, whether it be laptop encryption, data at rest. We are seeing a lot of government agencies now have chief data officers that are really focusing on the data resiliency and the cyber resiliency in their organizations. So that's helped some, but in smaller organizations, they just don't have the funding for these type positions.
Mm-hmm. How do you think government's going about kind of innovating, engaging with cutting edge technology and highly skilled private enterprise to try to tackle this?
Yeah, there have been some programs set up in working with industry. In other words, cross pollination, having programs where people can go in and out of government into industry and back. I think that's a big one. The other thing government's done is they have put some new pay scales in place for their cybersecurity and acquisition folks to give them a 20 to 30% bump. But in most cases, Pat, that's still not enough. You'll see that many times a CISO in government can make 3-4 times the amount of money in the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
So that continues to be a very big problem.
Yep. There have been some recent thefts, just individual hacks in cryptocurrency, and generally, what I've seen that the advice is keep things in paper as much as you can, even though we're all very techno forward. Don't keep all things on one device and always use different passwords. And when you self custody, don't put everything in one account, right? Kind of like have it
Yeah.
in different accounts with
Yeah.
different passwords. So you increase the complexity and organizational burden on yourself, but you reduce the risk from any one hack, I guess.
But and we're also seeing that. Pat's a great point. We're also seeing that with telecom providers, not just having, if say you're having issues, security issues with a Verizon, you want to have other providers available, whether it's on a surge capability or contract if needed capability. So that's also the other thing that we're seeing is the cloud is playing a big factor in archiving now data. So it used to be where we just had tapes. Now today we're seeing organizations that are taking that, not only having it on tape, but maybe also having schedules where you have full archive done once a week in the cloud because of just what our cloud service providers are now offering, Amazon,
Mhm.
Microsoft, Google, and now even Oracle has become a huge player. And a lot of our companies that have Oracle databases, they're finding it much easier to use the Oracle cloud and offload their data. So where in some cases they may have 2 or 3 different copies of that data because of a ransomware type attack if you were to need to go back and recover quickly.
Yeah, SIM swapping is also a big deal. Like, there's some secure providers that will be a go-between between AT&T or Verizon and your phone service, and they'll have a certain kind of SIM card that makes it impossible for an employee at a kiosk to swap it out. Because a very popular scam is just to get a job at a kiosk, go through the list of all the prominent cryptocurrency holders, and just see which phones you can swap.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I imagine it would be the same for uh, corporate executives or government officials too.
Yeah. Yeah. We're still seeing crypto slowly being used. IRS and some of the others are catching on, but for the most part, many of our government agencies have stayed clear because I don't think they understand it, Pat. I think it's really more of a understanding of what crypto provides and the benefits. But it's been a slow movement from where I've been and seen. But there are some still true believers out there, especially in the states. Some of I see pockets, if you will, some of the states that want to be more innovative than others. Their CIOs that understand it and get it are willing to make some of these changes and adaptation and try pilot projects, if you will, proof of concepts.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's kind of a near-term thing. You've seen funding for central bank to study, central bank digital currencies, and through your, government business executive forum, I've heard a lot of really interesting things about public databases being on the blockchain, right? So, like our patents or our copyright makes a lot of sense that anyone could look it up at any time, but it can't be hacked, right? Things like that, business registries. And I think like things like your own credit history, your own medical history, your own voting history, your own, credit history should probably be something you actually keep and then you unlock and give access to with permission, and then kind of take back. You give it for 5 minutes, so some credit risk can be done, and then you take it back, and no one can kind of
Right.
ping it. Like,
Yeah.
um, but it's hard to monetize that.
It is. The other point I want to make, we have seen an uptick, which is a good thing, in two-factor authentication. Just about all online apps now are requiring two-factor authentication other than just a password. You're going to have to verify your identity through maybe a cell phone message or email that's making sure that you are who you say you are. So I think that's been a really big thing. The government also has something called zero trust that they've really really been making a big push across government. And basically, what that means is trust no one. Trust no one on your network. So it really gets in to it's a framework. There's not a one-all solution for zero trust. It's basically just making sure that you as an organization, whether government or industry, are looking at all areas, whether it be authentication, confidentiality, integrity, and so on within your organization, and making sure that you're putting measures in place and controls in place to really tighten things up. So the White House has been pretty serious about that. They've got a mandate out, right, executive order out, where agencies have to have certain things done by a certain point. So that's continuing, which is a good thing.
Oh, this has been really cool. Are there any other kind of thoughts or points you'd like to share?
No, I think the last thing I would like to say is I think relationship building is key for a lot of our government and industry, whether it's for training, budget, risk management continues to be a big important topic that many overlook, the importance of managing your risk, because a lot of times you can't have everything, but what are you willing to live with in your organization? And I can't overemphasize some of the basic housekeeping that needs to go on. But other than that, I think we covered a lot of things, Pat.
Yeah. It seems like the cybersecurity of a country or a large organization is made up of the security of each individual in that organization.
Yeah, really does.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I think this is really informative. It's a really interesting view. Like individual people in cryptocurrency generally don't think about things at a very high level and how it filters all the way down cybersecurity. So I think this was really informative.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Glad to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay. Thanks so much, Barry.
See ya.